Ladies and gentlemen, the Age of Mythology Retold beta is now out and I got to play a bit. So I compiled for you the most notable gameplay changes that happened compared to the original game. Do note that much of this can change until release, and maybe beyond too. Number 1. Attack move redefines combat. The attack move command is highly responsive now, making it so you no longer have to manually right-click targets with your large armies. You always should enter combat with an attack move command rather than having too many units focus their attack on the same target. Of course, it's still important to have good positioning. Don't slam your cavalry into infantry, but rather make sure they are approaching enemy ranged units and then attack move them separately. While pathing still needs a lot of improvements, large armies move much more smoothly than in the original game. So much so that I was able to use my entire Ragnarok army in one location without them blocking each other from moving too much. I would assume that with pathing improvements combined with attack move working well, surrounding enemies will be quite prominent in the future. Number 2. Full Navy Rework. Rather than only arrow ships being available in the classical age, we now get all 3 types. This is absolutely fantastic, as it will be easier to destroy enemy docks once you are winning. But also the actual combat triangle being present will give us more interesting strategic choices as well as deeper micro. Do you risk going for the slower siege ships so that you can take down docks, or opt instead for some fast hammer ships to harass some lone fishing ships that ventured out too far? Also, naval myth units are no longer tied to minor gods. Everyone gets them in their respective age, such as the Scylla in Heroic. Number 3. Repeating god powers. You'd think this would be higher on my list, but no. Additional uses of these powers can get very expensive. Each costs extra favor, and the more times you use a power, the more expensive the next reuse will get. Definitely we will see certain powers used multiple times, especially in longer games. But perhaps you're better off in some cases with just training myth units. Still, without a doubt, a powerful tool if you can pay the price. I think I like the significant restrictions, as the game doesn't default to too much god power abuse. Number 4. Wonder Age. Rather than wonders offering you victory if you keep it intact for long enough, they make your god power reuses cheaper and also reduce the cooldowns, while beefing up all your myth units and even allowing you to rebuild Titan Gates. A real game-ending tool, unless of course your opponent gets one as well. Then everyone can fling god powers at each other, in contrast to what I just said before this part. All bets are off in that case. Number 5. Norse Rework. The Norse in the original game have always severely lacked ranged options, which was really bad news when it came to countering flying units. The addition of the Goldie heroes is an essential fix to that issue. Flying units can now be a bit stronger as well as a result, seeing as Norse has a counter. The Goldie are also super useful against ranged myth units that melee units wouldn't be able to reach due to the enemy frontline. Plus, they can build and also gather favor quickly, like the Herser. The addition of the Herdman I think is less necessary, but it does offer all Norse good anti-cavalry damage regardless of your minor god choice. As Odin didn't used to have access to Bragi, this is a niche that is now filled. That said, you could argue that Odin didn't struggle too much against cavalry anyway and had some other strengths to compensate. There's a new building to train units from as well, the Great Hall. This is where you get your heroes and cavalry from, while the Longhouse trains your infantry units, other than the Huskarl, which remains in the Hill Fort. The Jarl, however, is moved to the Great Hall, making them much more readily available, though they understandably no longer get a bonus damage against myth units. Njord's Ringgiver upgrade restores this, though. Number 6. Egyptian Monument Rework. While much has happened to the Egyptians, I really want to give a shout out to the new monument bonuses that each of the major gods get. When you empower a monument as a Ra player with a pharaoh, it will apply the empowerment in a large radius to all buildings within, though at the reduced rate of a priest's empowering. This means you could empower your gold miners and farmers around the town center, as well as a handful of production buildings very easily. It's also possible to have the other monuments nearby, increasing the favor generation rate for the whole group. For ISIS players, the old effect of blocking enemy god powers in their radius remains, though it's pretty small unless you empower the monument. They also heal nearby allies and gather favor at double speed while empowered, but not without. As for Set, you get a small discount for barracks and Migdol stronghold units that are nearby. There's no empower bonus here. Guess this pharaoh is more about animal summoning. Number 7. large population cap. In Retold, rather than being limited to just 10 houses, you can actually build 16. This raises the population limit from 160 to 220 once you have 3 fortified town centers, which is huge. No longer is your economy going to take up 80% of your population. With the armies being bigger and overall more lethal, things like walls and building spam are far less effective, leading to a more action-packed game. And let's be honest, we all enjoy big fights, even though little skirmishes are fun too. At some point, the game has to climax, and so do we. Number 8. Crazy strong myth units. Seriously, some of these guys are on steroids compared to the old game. Scorpion men deal ridiculous poison damage in a large AoE, while trolls gain a stone throw ability that knocks enemies back. Nemean lions stun enemies with their roar, while mummies can turn large numbers of human units into undead minions with a single ability cast, and of course let's not forget the Nidhogg's massive strafing run attack. The list goes on of course, but what else is interesting is that whenever you get to the next age, myth units get buffed like heroes do, making the early game myth units more useful later on. They also physically get bigger, and we know that bigger is better. So a Sphinx in the late game is actually not terrible. Number 9. Nearly symmetrical maps. Hold your horses, the maps are still randomly generated, but they are super fair now, to the point where you actually rarely come across real issues with things like resource distribution. On that note, there's a lot more food around in general, which is good for new players as it's going to be unlikely that you get starved of food. That said, it also makes it less likely that people will leave their base to secure hunting grounds, making matches more static. Definitely a huge fan of the fact that I no longer have to go up against people that somehow get one of my settlements on their side of the map. Number 10. The AutoQ Compromise. While we still have automatic training on economic units like villagers, fishing ships and caravans, military units are to be trained manually. This offers the compromise between the game-wide automation the original game had and what most of the rest of the genre is doing without such a feature. The setting is still available in custom games and single player to enable AutoQ, however this is off in wrecked games. So those are to me the top 10 changes, but honestly you'd be hard pressed to find something in this game that did not get changed in some way. Even the smaller tweaks like raising the bonus damages that human units deal to the stuff they counter have a huge impact, making the combat a lot more lethal. If you put everything together, you get a seriously action-packed game, and I think it's so much more exciting than the original, even though things are a bit rough around the edges still. I will go into that in a beta review coming soon. But what would be your top 10 list of changes? Let me know in the comments. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.